Suppose you own a business and one of your company's departments has a staff of 44 people. After 4 years of working together, 40 of the staff members warned everyone that rehiring the manager could be dangerous for the business. Just 4 of Donald Trump's 44 former cabinet members have publicly endorsed his 2024 run. NBC News reached out to over 40 former cabinet members, finding just 4 publicly endorsed Trump. Of 44 members of former President Donald Trump's cabinet, less than 10% have publicly endorsed him in his 2024 presidential run.
I wasn't just a Trump supporter, I was a true believer. I was one of his closest advisors. The Trump family became my family. I spent Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him when the cameras were off. He has no empathy, no morals, and no fidelity to the truth. He used to tell me, "It doesn't matter what you say, Stephanie. Say it enough and people will believe you." But it does matter. What you says matter, and what you don't say matters. On January 6th, I asked Melania if we could at least tweet that while peaceful protest is the right of every American, there's no place for lawlessness or violence. She replied with one word: no. I became the first senior staffer to resign that day. I couldn't be part of the insanity any longer. When I was press secretary, I got skewered for never holding a White House briefing. It's because, unlike my boss, I never wanted to stand at that podium and lie. Now here I am, behind a podium, advocating for a Democrat.
You hear there he is still claiming to this day that you had the power to reject electoral votes. And his lawyers are suggesting reasonable people can disagree on whether you had that authority.
Well, Dana, President Trump was wrong then, and he's wrong now. I had no right to overturn the election. It's very clear that under the Constitution of the United States, Article 2, my responsibility as Vice President, as President of the Senate, was to preside over a joint session of Congress where the Constitution says the electoral votes shall be opened and shall be counted. I really do believe that people all across this country are coming to realize that more every day. Although, as I've told you before, Dana, over the last 2 years, I've been deeply humbled how many Americans have come up to me and expressed their appreciation. I mean, I truly do believe that we kept our oath to the Constitution that day. But the American people deserve to know that President Trump, asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution. But I kept my oath, and I always will. And I'm running for president in part because I think anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. I mean, our Constitution is more important than any one man. Our country is more important than any one man's career.
Now, of course, just to remind everyone, John Kelly was his longest-serving chief of staff. He is a retired Marine, and he was Donald Trump's chief of staff while he was in the White House. The two had a very close working relationship, but obviously these comments from Kelly, repeated comments from Kelly, have gotten underneath Donald Trump's skin.
3.5, 4 years ago when he was running for president, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was ignorant.
It was challenging for me to go to work for a man who is pretty undisciplined, doesn't like to read.
There was just an unwillingness on the part of the president, I think, to do systematic learning.
I thought that he would take his oath of office seriously, that he would be committed to advancing this country. He absolutely has an issue with the truth, and sometimes he battles with reality.
I think we need to look harder at who we elect. What is their character like? What are their ethics? Are they willing, if they're elected, to represent all of their constituents, not just the base?
Is the president lying?
Yes, he is. And it's not the first time either.
When you're actually expecting him sitting behind the Resolute desk to be presidential, and he makes statements like that, and he means them, it gives you a great deal of pause.
There is a sense that if you're not there, you holding things together, it would be worse.
I felt I needed to leave government, share what I was seeing and how similar it looked to other authoritarian states, and ultimately do everything that I could to prevent the situation from getting worse.
And I'd have to say to him, well, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, but you can't do it that way. It violates the law. It violates a treaty.
It was really more about his personal agenda than really the agenda that the task force had at hand, which was how are we going to save and protect Americans?
I am frustrated at the lack of leadership. I am frustrated at the lack of urgency. I'm frustrated at our inability to be heard as scientists.
I think he is responsible for the deaths of Americans.
The biggest fear I have is that mistakes are being made that will have grave consequences for the national security of the United States.
We have to have good order and discipline. It's the backbone of what we do.
This is a White House that hasn't prioritized the safety of Americans. He's campaigning as a law and order president, but he is the lawlessness and disorder president.
The retired Marine general writing in The Atlantic, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us.
Charlottesville was more than a blip. Starting with Secretary Kelly, then Secretary Nielsen, Secretary McLean, all of them went to the White House and said, this is important, we need to address this. And for a variety of reasons, we were rebuffed.
My ultimate decision to leave started with Charlottesville.
I do think that there are people that hold a white nationalist viewpoint and that is actually impacting those policies.
If we've learned one lesson about Donald Trump, it's that he thinks if something aligns with his personal interests, it is good. If it doesn't align with his personal interests, it is bad.
And at the end of the day, the only thing he cares about is himself. He has absolutely no attachments to anybody. And this is the reason why he can't express any empathy.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
I may disagree with Joe Biden on a lot of policies, but where I don't disagree is that he's a genuine man of character.
How do you think history will remember Donald Trump?
I hope it will remember him as a one-term president.
It's so devastating how incompetent he is, and he cannot continue to be our president. Too many lives have already been lost.